The night dark, the rain relentless. And yet, you drive safely. Perhaps you have the eyes of a puma piercing the dark. Or a bullfrog seeing through the wetness blurs and glares. Or could it be your Bosch Night Performance wiper blades wiping this whole time? So adapted to the dangers of driving on stormy nights, it's almost as if you are too. Night vision has evolved. Bosch Night Performance wiper blades.
At your job, do you ever have to deal with a nose roller? How about a snub pulley? Well, if you're installing a new conveyor belt system, dealing with the different components can sound like you're speaking a foreign language. Luckily, you've got a team ready to help. Grainger's technical product specialists are fluent in maintenance, repair, and operations. So whenever you want to talk shop, just reach out. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I just be the best, bring the best energy I can, be a really good teammate. And I know the guys in the dugout when I'm pitching are the same way I want to be. So that's what's so great about this team is we all love each other and we're on the fight every single pitch.
Georgia Southern sophomore pitcher Ty Fisher brings us in there. Jeremy, you got to be willing to fight every single pitch, every single game in order to try to get those 2 wins every single weekend. Unfortunately, the Eagles unable to do that as they fall on Sunday to the Raging Cajuns.
I can't believe that because it seemed to me that the Eagles were doing pretty well. What's going on? What is your assessment of the Eagles? Because you were there in person.
I was there in person.
Yeah.
Great facility, great atmosphere there at Louisiana Lafayette. Definitely one of the premier places to watch college baseball as they, again, keep trying to battle their way back to the top of the standings. Georgia Southern entered the weekend as that team on top of the standings, just unable to really get those timely hits. And really, from what I saw on Saturday, it was a defensive game. Louisiana Lafayette drove home the small ball mentality as they were bunting left and right, and it was working. It was their most threatening offensive attack that they had was dropping the bunt.
Well, it's all about fundamentals. If you can get the fundamentals done right, you don't have to hit a home run every time. You just have to play team baseball, right? If you want to win.
Thank you, Coach.
But you know what? For Georgia Southern, they came into the weekend, sitting high and mighty atop the standings, and that's true. But they were a little bit overinflated, having gotten 3 wins out of the worst team in the Sun Belt right now, and that's my Red Wolves, who, after beating UCA in the middle of the week, have now lost 3 more, and this time it was to the Chanticleers, which I guess there's some expectation to lose to the Chanticleers given their history, but it's still pretty disheartening for a Red Wolves fan if you're watching baseball.
It was definitely frustrating watching that game outside looking in, just because it looked like the Chants were doing what they could to give the Red Wolves a little morale boost with a win, and the Red Wolves just did not want it.
When the Red Wolves need a hit, they don't hit. When the Red Wolves need a field, they can't field. And when the Red Wolves need late inning pitching, they just simply do not have it. There's a break. We were talking about fundamental. Well, I was talking about fundamental baseball early on in the show, and that's something that the Red Wolves just lack. They have problems simply catching the ball. They have problems throwing strikes. I think at one point in the game yesterday, there was a series where a player, Chanticleer, had walked, and then we balked, and then there was an error, and it's just one of those things that it's not only just bad baseball, it's unwatchable baseball in Jonesboro, and there needs to be some changes made. I hope it happens.
Some places that didn't have unwatchable baseball, Texas State and Georgia State with series sweeps over the weekend. The Bobcats beating App State, the Panthers beating the Jags. Texas State back right on top, 8-1 in the conference. Georgia State at 7-2, Georgia Southern now 6-3, and then Troy kind of sneaking in there at about a 4th place. We're about a month and a half away from that Sun Belt Conference tournament kicking off at the Riverwalk Stadium in Montgomery, Alabama. Jeremy, have we really learned anything early on in these baseball games?
Yeah, I think so. I think we've learned that Texas State's going to be pretty good. That Louisiana's always going to have, some stake in winning some games. I feel like the surprise to me, though, right now, and tell me, you're the baseball guy, Thibodeaux. You understand baseball better than anyone on the show. Is Georgia State kind of a surprise right now? Because I see them doing really well. I'm wondering, I don't remember thinking Georgia State Panthers good bad. Now, the Jags, I thought, good baseball program. Swept by Panthers. Is there something brewing here in Atlanta that maybe we should be looking at?
It's the carryover of the Braves magic.
Oh,
No, I think Georgia State's just kind of going through it and doing that kind of, and I know this sounds bad, but it's really a compliment to them. They're kind of the dirtbags of baseball. They're really doing the things that they need to do in order to get the games won. Whether it's the guy laying down the sacrifice bunt, going that extra inning when maybe you're tired on the mound, just doing whatever it takes to get that win. And it's showing where you're able to really go down and get that series sweep against South Alabama. That's huge.
Here's something I heard described about the Memphis Grizzlies, the NBA basketball team. They were described as unpleasant. And at first, I thought, oh my God, they're talking mean about Memphis. They weren't. They were just saying they were just unpleasant to play. They're so good that they're just unpleasant team to have to welcome into your hut and play. And maybe Georgia State is that baseball team, that gritty, down and dirty team that's just unpleasant to play.
Remember, I'm old enough to actually remember the dog days there of the Detroit Pistons. So I know exactly what you're speaking about.
Yeah, they are. Yes, perhaps they are the 80s Bill Lambier version of the Detroit Pistons of Sunbelt baseball. That would be the Georgia State Panthers.
But I asked you the question, what we had really learned here through these first 3 weeks. I asked the same question there of Georgia Southern head coach Rodney Hennon. What has he learned about his team here early on?
Well, I think, one thing we've seen this week, Ben Johnson, comes to mind. We started the year with him in the weekend rotation, moved him to the bullpen this week, and he's been really good out of the bullpen this week. So that's been encouraging to see. And, Danny Madden will get the ball tomorrow, and, we're still kind of looking for somebody to step up in that Sunday slot, and Danny gets that opportunity tomorrow. Hopefully he can do that. And, one thing about this group that they've shown through the first half of the season is they're going to battle and they're going to compete. And, to the last out is made. And, we certainly had to do that today to get this win.
So we shift gears now. Softball well underway as well. We are exactly 1 month away from that Sun Belt Conference tournament kicking off in Mobile. Still continues to be a two-horse show there with South Alabama getting a series sweep over Coastal Carolina, Louisiana Lafayette, 2-1 series winner over Texas State. I feel like we're talking women's basketball again, where it's really two teams and then everyone else.
Yeah, and maybe that's just a matter of Sunbelt really needing to focus a little bit on getting these sort of I don't want to say they're non-revenue. I don't know, maybe softball's revenue, but they're focused on, like, for a lot of Sunbelt programs, they focus on football, a little bit on basketball, and then some of the women's sports kind of loses out. I feel like Arkansas State. I feel like the Sunbelt could be a tremendous softball league, given the amount of talent that we have here in the South. So to me, it's a little bit of a shame that's a two-horse show. I feel like there should be at least 5 or 6 programs in the Sun Belt that are really competing, including Arkansas State, who doesn't even have a program. I hate bringing it back to Arkansas State, but damn it, when am I going to get a program at Arkansas State, Tibbs? What do I have to do?
You're the alum. You got to pony up the bucks and get that program going.
I do my part. I grouse. I complain. I express my chagrin. Why isn't it just magically happening for me?
Taking the field, your Arkansas State Red Wolves at Harper Field.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe if I were able to pull together a substantial contribution, I might be able to get that name on the field. That would be pretty good.
So when we go to Sunbelt Conference Media Days, we'll make
Yeah.
sure that we go over to Harris Casino. You can put it
Okay.
all on black, and we'll
Yeah.
see what happens on the roulette wheel.
Like just a $20 chip. Bam. See what happens.
You gotta put some more zeros in that.
More than that. Okay. Well, all right. All right. Let me see what I can do. I'll talk to my wife, and we'll see if we can make that happen. But I don't know if I'd count on that.
Jeremy's homeless, but Arkansas State gets a softball program.
I can live on the field.
So it's also it's almost the end of basketball season. We're at the finals coming up on Monday night.
Yeah.
This past weekend, they had the 3-on-3 championship. Probably the best named team, maybe I'm biased, was the Sun Belt and the Atlantic Sun. They were the Sons of Anarchy.
Yes.
4-3. They fell in the finals bracket to the MEAC and SWAC team, but still a winning record, able to go in there and really kind of cause some anarchy there with the two Sun conferences.
I got some basketball news.
Fire away.
So have you heard about Eric Church? Have you heard of Eric Church?
No, who's Eric Church?
He's a country music star.
Oh, that Eric Church.
And Eric Church, he strums the guitar. He has concerts, and people go to those concerts. They buy tickets, and then they go to the concert to listen to him sing. Well, he had a concert scheduled for the day Duke and North Carolina were going to play.
Correct.
So what he did was he canceled the show. Said, sorry, fans, this is a lifelong dream of mine. Duke versus North Carolina in the Final Four. I've got to go. I will bear the slings and arrows of your criticism because I am such a fan. But here's the thing. Here's the rub, Dusty Thibodeaux. Eric Church did not graduate from North Carolina. He graduated from Appalachian State.
Oh. So you're saying this is the equivalent of you bailing on the show to go to an Arkansas game?
Yes, absolutely. This would be like, hey, listen, Tibbs, I'd be on the show tonight, but it's been my lifelong dream to see the Arkansas Razorbacks in the grade 8. So I'm going to go watch the Razorbacks. So I don't know. I haven't heard if there's some consternation amongst the Appalachian State faithful, who I know can be a little bit prickly. I don't know if you know this, Tibbs, but Appalachian State fans can be a little bit prickly when it comes to their fandom, right? They're a little bit like, hey, you don't mess with Appalachian State. And I feel like maybe Eric Church might mess with Appalachian State a little bit, but
would it have been better if he would have just played a covert card and then been shown in the crowd?
Yeah. I don't know. We had this conversation when Arkansas Razorbacks were playing in the NCAA tournament, and there's always like a group of or a subsection of Red Wolves fans that will suddenly become Razorback fans when Razorbacks are doing well. And so then there's always this debate: is there a good time to shed your allegiance to start rooting for a more celebrated team in your state? Is there ever a good time for that? So the debate is kind of hot and heavy. Some people say, yeah, take the high road. A lot of your friends are Razorback fans. You should be supporting your friends. And a lot of people say, no, hell no. You never root for Razorbacks, no matter how well they do. You hope for their demise. So you being on that side in Louisiana with LSU probably getting the lion's share of the riches and the media coverage, you probably have the same debates that go on through there. But yeah, Eric Church, I don't know. I don't know what Appalachian State alumni think of that.
Always interesting to tell. Another big basketball story that broke this past week that I know that you're trying to block out of your mind. Sun Belt Conference Player of the Year, Norchad Omier, said, see you later, Jonesboro.
Adios, he told us. All right. So yeah, that was kind of a deal. Dusty Thibodeaux. So Norchad Omier, Sun Belt Player of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year. There was a lot of speculation during the season that he might go. He might test the waters in the transfer portal, or even, perhaps go pro, not necessarily the NBA, but perhaps in Europe or Australia or any other one of the half dozen professional leagues. He's a kid from Nicaragua. He has a family to support, so you get that. Well, after the Sun Belt tournament, where Arkansas State would lose to the Georgia State Panthers, we kind of sat and waited, and he put out a graphic. Norchad Omier put out a graphic on Twitter. I'm coming back, guys. We're going to kick some butt. I'm going to be back with my teammates. Everything's going to be great. It's going to be, roses. I love Mike Bellato. We're going to do some stuff. It's going to be awesome. And then he went on to a podcast and said, a lot of people have been approaching me. They wanted me to join their teams or look at their programs. And I've said no. I've said, I just focus on basketball here in Jonesboro. I want to be a Red Wolf for life. That's what he said. So then spring break comes, Dusty Thibodeaux. He goes somewhere, I don't know, back to Miami, maybe, I don't know. Comes back, has a whole new attitude. I don't know if I want to stay anymore. Coach Bellato's like, I think maybe you should. So it's back and forth. And well, before long, he scrubbed his Twitter feed. And the next day, he's announcing that after, taking some time with his family and really thinking about it, he is submitting his name into the transfer portal. And of course, there's like a million rumors where he might be going. It's all conjecture. I couldn't give you any real facts as to where he might be headed. A lot of SEC and Big 12 teams are on the mention for it. So I guess we'll just have to see.
I no doubt think that he's that kind of talent that he can go and play in the SEC and Big 12. But doesn't that kind of make you just another fish in the pond as opposed to being the man in the Sun Belt Conference, the man at Arkansas State?
You have to think of it in some ways. Yes, he would be the man at Arkansas State and would obviously be the man in the Sun Belt, as he's been named, one of the top players for 2 years now. But the Sun Belt has a very bad reputation for putting people in the NBA, right? It was Ron Hunter's kid, the last guy. Did he even get drafted, or is he just?
He was a day 2 draftee, or maybe a late first round.
Okay. Because other than that, you just don't see. So the Sun Belt isn't known for elevating players into the professional ranks. I think maybe Norchad Omier is hearing those whispers saying that you can do great things at Arkansas State, but it'll never be enough to elevate you to a point where you can get these big dollars at an NBA team. So I don't know. I feel like he has the motor and the drive to be a good player in the SEC or in the Big 12. I do. Does he have the talent? I mean, he's only been playing basketball for like 5 or 6 years. Does he have that sort of that ability to do that? I do not know. I don't know if he'll even have the resources around him to make him comfortable. He had Mike Bellato, who spoke Spanish, for God's sake, so I can help him out. But we'll see. He's just in the portal. Who knows? Maybe he changes his mind and comes back. Mike Bellato did not seem very optimistic about that. Now, Dizzy Seals, transfer out of Arkansas, who played for Jonesboro, also jumped into the transfer portal. And there seems to be some opening for Desi to come back, because if he transfers, he has to sit out a year.
Am I the only one that when you're done with your team, you should be done with your team? There's no half in, half out. You're either in Jonesboro, in wherever, or you're not.
So it was kind of funny listening to Mike Bellato about it, because we were mostly talking about Desi, pretty much assuming that Norchad Omier is gone. And he sort of played it tough. Like, somebody asked if Desi decides that maybe to come back, would he have a space? Would there be a space open from the team? He's like, I don't know. A lot of things were said. But the fish on Desi Seals, it sounded to me that Bellato, I think, probably would bring him back if all the right things were said. But yeah, I get what you're saying, Dusty. I think if you quit on your team, that maybe that's penalty enough. But in this day of the transfer portal, I don't know. Maybe those rules change a little bit. Maybe you just have to take it on a case by case basis.
So we talked about the basketball player of the year in Norchad O'Meara.
Yeah.
But Jeremy, we have the football player of the year from last season that's really been the face of the program or of the league as a whole these past 2 years.
Wait, are you saying theoretically we have him, or figuratively we have him, or metaphorically we have him?
No, we have the king of the till. We have
him literally here. That's incredible. We have Grayson McCall here on the show.
We have Grayson McCall. Grayson, welcome in.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
So, Grayson, like I said, you really kind of bust onto the scene 2 years ago and really became the face of the Sun Belt Conference. Take me back through that 2020 season. It was a COVID year, so really all eyes were glued to the TV for any kind of live football there was. But the Chants really made the most of it and really propelled the league into the national spotlight.
Yes, sir. We didn't really even know we were going to be able to play going into the season. It was a mindset of, we're going to be ready if the opportunity comes, but, if the opportunity comes, we don't want to, we don't want to not be ready. So, a lot of sacrificing, a lot of Zoom meetings, a lot of, wearing the mask around the facility and, off campus just to, give ourselves the best opportunity to play. And, just a lot of hard work going into that season, with a couple losing seasons previously. I think we were picked last to finish in the conference, just a lot of hard work. And, we bust onto the scene and, win a couple big games, and the ball just got rolling for us. And, we just took the momentum and, took it how it came and, end up putting up a, really good season. So
let's talk about now then. You had that great season before, and I remember the Sun Belt, and there seemed to be with your coach Jamie Chadwell and the guys that were there. I don't think you were there, but there was this feeling that there needed to be some validation for what happened in 2020. So 2021 was almost like a year that had to say, hey, listen, 2020 wasn't a fluke. How did you guys go into 2021 trying to duplicate that magic of 2020?
Right. Just, kind of the same process. We knew we had the tools. We knew that we could put together another really good year. So, it really started with our coaches, and we had really, really, really good leadership, a great culture that those older guys put in place for us. And, kind of just took the same approach, came in every day, ready to work, prepared the same for every opponent, no matter who it was. And just had that chip on our shoulders that, like you said, 2020 wasn't a fluke, and, coastal football is here to stay. So we just had that mindset going into it, and we just, played the cards how they're dealt.
But McCall, I mean, my God, you went from, like you were saying, you weren't the Chants weren't really expected much of 2020. Come out at top 25 team, and now you've got a target on your back every game. Are you telling me there wasn't that much pressure?
Oh, there definitely was, but like you said, we were picked last in the Sun Belt, and then I guess we had some pretty high expectations in 2021. But that's what we've always wanted. We wanted to put coastal football on the map just because we've been overlooked for so many years. So yeah, I would say there was some pressure and like a target on our back, but we love it. We called our guys the bad boys of the Sun Belt just because after that 2020 season, many teams didn't like us. So we just, had that chip on our shoulder and went out there and played football.
And I guess that's kind of what I'm talking about too, because I can only speak from the perspective I had out in the Sun Belt West, which is the Chanticleer football seemed like a team that was building, not rebuilding, just building. Right. And so there wasn't to us, we didn't see a lot of opportunity for rivalry. Suddenly everybody seems to consider the Chants the rivals. Louisiana, Appalachian State, Georgia Southern, Georgia State, all these guys are like, yeah, we got to take these guys down. So that there must have been a little extra juice in 2021, right?
Yeah, there was for sure. Maybe a little extra momentum just because, a little extra drive just because we knew those guys didn't like us, and every team wanted to come in and beat us. So we just made sure no matter who we were playing, if it was the worst team in the league or the best team, take them the same way, prepare the same way, go in every game with the same mindset. So I think that's what definitely helped us out.
So you missed all of spring though with shoulder surgery. What's the latest of where you're at in the recovery, and do you think you'll be ready for this upcoming fall?
Yes, sir. So I'm about 9 weeks out right now, post surgery. Rehab's been going really, really well. I have my motion all the way completely back. We have a really great training staff that's been helping me out all the way. Every day I'm in there getting work on it. I'm going to start a throwing program here in about the next month, get that rolling. But, I'm really confident that I'll be ready for the season. Like I said, our trainers and our coaches have been helping me out a lot. It was kind of rough at first, but it's been going great, and I'm really excited for the season. So you'll definitely see me out there.
So how hard is this season also going to be for you coming off of that surgery? But you lose two of your top receivers as well in highly unlikely, which I still don't know how that wasn't capitalized on in the NIL deal with T-shirts and everything else.
Highly likely, yeah.
Yeah, man. A lot of pressure on us again this year, and me individually as well. But that we have a lot of young guys that have kind of been under the radar, that have been in the system for 2-3 years, that are ready to play. We got a great transfer from Sam Pickney out of Georgia State. He's going to be a great weapon for us. And
yeah,
so,
speaking of making people hate you.
Yeah, I know, right? But we've got some guys that are going to step up, and we're going to be just fine.
Yeah, so during the off season, after it was all said and done, after the bowl games and such, there was some speculation that you would enter the draft and that maybe Jamie Chadwell would entertain some offers from more well-resourced schools. It turns out you guys were more like, hey, let's ride this Bronco one more time. Was there any coordination between you two guys in terms of what your futures were going to be, or was it just simply what's the word I'm looking for? A coincidence that you two both just ended up staying at Coastal Carolina to give another good year of Chanticleer football?
Yes, sir. We actually did talk about it a couple times just because of all the speculation and the buzz that was going on. Not only I know like Tennessee and some other SEC big time programs had some job openings, and there was speculation that maybe he would be going somewhere else. And obviously, as well with me, some people thought I would maybe declare for the draft or even transfer to a Power 5 program. But he sat down with me and talked to me about it. I would potentially was thinking, if he went somewhere, maybe that's a good place for me to go, maybe go play some better competition, but still be under the same system. So a lot of speculation, but at the end of the day, Coach Chadwell loves it here. His plan is to stay here and continue to build this program, and kind of the same for me. This place, my foundation was built here. I love it here. I love the program, love the coaches. My teammates are great. And, ultimately came down to, me, the love I have for this program, and just, ultimately wanted to ride it out another year and, leave my legacy here. So that's what it came down to.
Over 5,000 yards passing in your career there at Coastal Carolina. What's the one school, though, in the conference that you kind of look at that defense and you constantly are kind of beside yourself, having to spend that extra time in the film room, take the extra reps in order to prepare for them?
Yeah, I think all the defenses in the Sun Belt are really unique. Some similar, but a lot different. I think no matter who we're playing, I have to prepare to, to the best of my ability. So I'm prepared when I go out there. But, some teams like Arkansas State and Texas State, I don't know if you're familiar with this term, but they ran what we call a robber defense. So, they'll take a D lineman out and, throw a extra safety in there, something like that on third and long, second and long. So I wouldn't say a specific team, but, just getting familiar with those type of looks, seeing different things week to week, and obviously seeing it for a whole year in 2020 helped me out this past year. Kind of looking at, how they played us in 2020, and also, how they're doing things in 2021. So I would just say things like that, just the jump from high school to college, just familiarizing myself with those different looks and being as prepared as I can when I go out there.
I did wonder, and this might not be a very fair question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, just for the hell of it. Did the injury have anything to do with your decision to stay another year?
No, sir, I don't believe so. No, I would say no. Obviously it was even after the bowl game, I knew I had something wrong with my shoulder. I didn't know how severe it was, but no, I would say no, man, not really.
Okay. So next year, are you even thinking about next year postseason, or are you just all focused 100% on getting through spring training and then or spring games?
Yeah, I've thought about it, talked to my parents with it, talked to some guys about it. Everything goes how I have it planned this season. My shoulder gets to 100%, and I'm out there being able to play at a high level. I expect this to be my last year of college football, but I do have 2 or 3 years of eligibility left to play. So, I'm going to prepare the best I can to have a great year this year and, just kind of let it play out.
So, Jeremy,
So you're going to see it. Yeah.
We know how great of a quarterback Grayson McCall is.
Yeah.
But here's our chance to ask him.
Okay.
Because he was a better basketball player in high school.
What?
Grayson, has Cliff Ellis reached out to you to try to change in that uniform for a Shant's basketball uniform?
He actually hasn't, but that's funny that you asked. One of our strength and conditioning guys that helps with the basketball team, his name's Zach. I always give him a hard time, after the games. I ask him to, put in a word to coach, in Coach Ellis's ear. Maybe I can get a little walk-on opportunity out there and help him out a little bit. But, yeah, that's funny you ask because I give him a hard time about that.
I'm sure nothing would give Jamie Chadwell more warm fuzzies than seeing his star quarterback coming out playing some basketball, maybe laying down some dunks, maybe breaking some ankles. I'm sure he would love to see that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure that he would like to have Cliff do that. So, with the the NFL draft coming up, you've got probably a couple guys that are going to be watching that with great interest. Are you going to be hanging out with Isaiah Likely or Hiley or any of the guys that day?
Yeah. So it's going to be a big day for us. We've got some, 3 guys that will probably get drafted for sure, with the potential of 4 or 5, maybe 6 guys getting an opportunity or at least getting to go work out for a team. So yeah, I think I'm going to talk to Isaiah. I'm not sure what his plans are, if he's going to actually be at the draft or he's going to be back home or what. But just it's going to be fun for me. Some of those guys are my best friends, and just seeing them get the opportunity to continue playing, it's going to be a really exciting night.
Well, I do want to say this before we let you go, Grayson, that I felt like the Chanticleers did a great job in representing the Sun Belt this year and the year before. Always played intriguing games on national TV, which is not something that you can always guarantee. But one thing that the Chanticleers do is they do entertain. And I think that's been really great for the Sun Belt. And a lot of that has to do with your style of offense, the way you play, the way you run hard, the way you run hard on every play, which is very exciting to watch. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in 2022.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Sun Belt Conference Player of the Year, Grayson McCall. I mean, Jeremy, our guest list just sometimes it amazes me even. But, he joked about getting the word in for Coastal Carolina. They could have used him. They almost won the basketball classic, but fell to Fresno State 85-74. I think with Grayson, it's a dub.
I always do wonder, though, Tibbs, does the football coach want to see his players playing on the basketball? I guess not. You'd probably see more of that. I know with the Red Wolves, we've seen like a couple tight ends or a wide receiver every now and then would show up and play, a little get on that roster. But what do you think the coaches think about that? Do you think that they're okay with that, or do you think they're like, hell no, keep them off that basketball court?
Depends on what the roster looks like. It could be okay, good. Maybe it weeds it out that he goes to full basketball and I have another scholarship spot. Yeah. The rest of the time, it's probably cringes and praying that ACL stay intact.
Well, I do hope that McCall gets over that injury, because I do think he's one of the more exciting players in the Sun Belt. And whether you like the Chanticleers or not, I know they have, Grayson's right, they have attracted a lot of Sun Belt heat over the last 2 seasons. You can't deny that the Chanticleers have played some really exciting football games over the last 2 years. And it bodes well for the Sun Belt to have those type of programs representing us.
Yeah, I love the shots and what they've done for the league. They've really put us on the national spotlight. I think the game that you could circle that really did it was that Brigham Young game in 2020. That was kind of the head east for the Cougars, and they'll eventually land at a place where they can play. And they drove all the way to Conway, South Carolina, and had the game there. I think it was capped at 5,000-10,000 people in the stands, and the shots were able to pull off the win.
Yeah, that was a nationally nationally broadcast game, and it was a game that was played under such bizarre and unique circumstances, and to have the chance close escrow and win that game it was just another great feather in the cap for the Sun Belt. And like I said about Jamie Chadwell, I was fully expected him to move on. I felt like his name couldn't be any hotter than it is now. But he just seems to fit that sort of Conway, South Carolina sort of culture. He seems to be the Chanticleers, and I felt like Grayson McCall was kind of cut from that same cloth.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely one and the same. And he mentioned the Tennessee job. I don't know if that would have been a good fit for Chadwell. I don't think that McCall would also do very well in that type of offense, even though it would kind of be a move for the shots to Knoxville. I'm just glad they're still in the league, because I think that we get one more year of really high caliber coaching, high caliber quarterback play, and hopefully some more big wins for the conference.
Yeah, and he was honest. He was like, "Yeah, I think I got one more year here, then I'm gonna move on." A lot of guys will have said, "Oh, well, I'll just take it game by game, and we'll see at the end of the season, reevaluate." He was like, "I think this is it. I think this is my last year," and it was kind of refreshing to hear that kind of honesty. He was like, "Hey, I want to be a Chanticleer for life, but I don't want to be a Chanticleer for 4 years. I want to go ahead and strike while the iron's hot as a quarterback, and that's what he's going to have to do for the next draft."
We talked to the guy that had been the Sun Belt Conference Player of the Year of Grayson McCall, but now we're talking future belt.
All right.
And Shane Mettlen joins us from the Daily News Record in Harrisonburg, Virginia. He was all over it this past week when we found out, Jeremy, that the Conference USA 3 would become the Sun Belt Conference 3.
Yeah, I would think that James Madison is probably like, finally these guys have gotten it together. I mean, James Madison has been ready for a long time. They've got their P's and Q's in order, right?
Yeah.
Are they thinking, what kind of shit show did we join?
More than likely, that's probably what they were.
In some ways, it kind of like reversed, because originally with JMU making that jump from FCS to FBS, there were a few more hurdles to climb with that. And, ODU here in Virginia, I mean, ODU and JMU were working on this side by side to get to the same conference throughout the entire process. And ODU didn't have quite as many hurdles to go with, especially at the state level with the state legislature in Virginia. But then once JMU got cleared at that level, they didn't have the conference trying to hold them back in the same way, leaving the CAA. So it was kind of like almost a reversal here the last few months, where JMU finally had it a little bit easier as far as like making the transition compared to what ODU had. And I'm just talking about from the Virginia point of view of things. I mean, it's been pretty much the same for Southern Miss and Marshall too, but seeing James Madison and Old Dominion go through the same process through the legislature kind of was interesting to see it that way, kind of flip. All of a sudden ODU was having trouble getting where they wanted to go.
Well, but early on too, didn't James Madison have a little bit of it wasn't too serious, but there was a bit of brouhaha concerning who can play in conference tournaments if they've already declared they were leaving. So there was a little bit of negativity and ill will that you had to smooth over. Was that right?
Yeah, there was. I mean, there's still a ton of like negativity and bad blood between JMU and the CAA, but there was never for the Conference USA, they had in their bylaws, you have to give us 14 months notice, which those schools never intended to do. They just figured we can buy our way out of that. Conference USA didn't want to even negotiate a buyout. For JMU, it was basically a matter of, I think it came down, it was like $1 million to get out of CAA which it's weird because CAA and CAA football are technically two different things, even though they're headquartered in the same location. So it was like $250,000 to get out of the football conference and $1 million to get out the rest. And they were able to just pay and move on. There was no time constraint there. Once they declared, they were done. For Conference USA, where they were losing so many teams at the same time, they did not want to let teams go early. And so it just became a huge mess as far as Conference USA saying, we're not even going to negotiate a buyout. And the other school saying, like, we're willing to pay our way out of this contract, but we're not playing with you guys next year. And it just became like a huge, huge mess where both the Sun Belt and Conference USA released football schedules with those teams on it, which I don't think I'd ever seen anything like that before, where two conferences are claiming the same teams at the same time.
Yeah, what a mess. But you know what? I was wondering, as a person, as somebody who covers CAA, and now you're moving into the Sun Belt. Did you keep a big eye on what's going on in Sun Belt basketball, for instance, this season? Was that held any interest to you, or were you more focused on what was going on in the CAA at the time?
I mean, day to day, I was focused on the CAA because JMU was playing those teams, but I was paying attention to the Sun Belt, and I've always been a big college basketball guy who pay attention to everything in college basketball just as a fan my entire life. So there was definitely interest in the Sun Belt. And I mean, I'll tell you, like, we talked about the brouhaha with JMU and the CAA before. JMU's teams didn't play in the conference tournaments. They weren't allowed to. I didn't watch a minute of the CAA basketball tournaments. I did watch the Sun Belt tournaments on ESPN Plus.
Yay! All right.
Better production. It was easier to watch. And yeah, so I mean, once the regular season was over, I completely shifted to the Sun Belt as far as basketball and football and everything's gone. Still got a little bit spring sports here. JMU, there's some interest in the teams. They still got to play some CAA games, but I get asked all the time, like, when are they taking CAA off the court? When are they getting it off the field? When are they taking those banners down?
Well, there is a date, though, right?
Probably.
There is a day, right, when it all officially.
July 1st.
Yeah, July 1st is when they officially move over. As far as when they sand down the basketball court, I don't know exactly when they're going to do that. But, I get asked that a lot. Like, when are they taking the logos off everything? And I don't know the official date, but, you won't see them next year. I can tell you that.
Yeah, somebody should set up a camera for when that process takes place. So then
I've even asked, like, hey, can you let me know when you're going to do it? Because people ask all the time. Like, I bet a video would get like a lot of clicks on it if we.
Yeah, that's great content. You got to have that.
I know. Yeah.
So I know Tibbs has a more penetrating questions, but I have a sort of protocol question to ask you, which because it's coming more in your neck of the woods, it's in our neck of the woods. But have you heard of this Eric Church guy?
Yes, I've heard of him. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So he's canceled a concert so he could have watched North Carolina, his favorite team, play Duke in the Final Four. And he canceled the concert, so people are like, "Hey, you canceled concert. Oh, you're such a fan." But he is a graduate of Appalachian State. So, is there some sort of breach of protocol here? Do you see any of that, or am I just making a mountain out of a molehill?
I'll tell you, I have lived in both Virginia and North Carolina, and you see that much more in North Carolina, where maybe I'm an App State grad, or maybe I'm an ECU grad, or a Charlotte grad, or whatever. But like, I've got my Tar Heel stuff. Like, you see that all the time in North Carolina.
Yeah,
you don't see as much. That's, I think, what's interesting about the Sun Belt adding the schools that they're adding is you don't see that. If you're a Marshall fan, you don't also have a West Virginia, jacket in your closet. And if you're a JMU fan, maybe you're a little bit interested in Virginia Tech, but at the same time, you're not. If you're JMU, the hardcore JMU fans are not Virginia Tech fans, for instance.
That's what I wanted to hear. Yes, that's what I wanted to hear. Loyalty, Tibbs. That's what we need. We need more loyalty.
Yeah, and I mean, like anywhere else, there are people who have connections to both schools, maybe have degrees from both schools, things like that. And but JMU just recently got a football game with UVA on the schedule for the first time in 40 years, and how badly JMU people want to beat UVA again in football. Like in basketball this year, like it's not a bunch. You don't see a ton of that where, yeah, I went to Appalachian State, but really I'm a Tar Heel. You know, you don't see it
Okay.
in Virginia as you do in North Carolina at all.
So Shane, last time we talked was right around the time that we learned that James Madison, Old Dominion, Marshall, and Southern Miss would be making the jump to the Sun Belt Conference. Has the excitement still kind of been there where people are looking forward to that first Sun Belt Conference game of James Madison, or even the season opener when they host Middle Tennessee in?
Yeah, the excitement level is huge, especially when they're able to get that Middle Tennessee game, because it's going to be, I mean, there's a lot of technicalities here. I had somebody correct me because we originally kind of said, which is what we were told by JMU, this will be the first home game against an FBS opponent, which wasn't necessarily true. Like Appalachian State played JMU back in the early 80s when they were in the early days of Division 1A. So it wasn't necessarily true, but it's going to be a huge thing. That game is going to be, quickly sold out as soon as all the tickets are available. They scheduled Marshall for homecoming, which we've been joking about. No more Campbells or Morehead States for homecoming games anymore. You're jumping right into Marshall. I imagine you won't be able to get a hotel room anywhere within 50 miles of Harrisonburg for that weekend. They're excited for the schedule, and it's part of what they say. Obviously CAA fans, we talked about the bad blood there. CAA fans will say things like, hey, enjoy the, whatever corporate sponsor minor bowl game you might be able to go to in a couple of years. And JMU fans are saying, yeah, we don't care about that. This is a move we're making for September through November, because now we're going to have games we're interested in for months down the line. We're not waiting for the FCS playoffs to finally have something competitive to look forward to.
Nice.
So yeah, those regular season football games, I would imagine they're probably going to sell out for the season as far as, their home games, and will probably travel pretty well when you look at, pretty close, reasonable drive road trips down to App State, over to ODU. I would imagine you're going to see a lot of JMU fans on the road too, like just because the excitement they have for being in this conference.
First Sun Belt Conference game is a trip to Boone, North Carolina against Appalachian State. I'm anxious just to kind of see how this transition goes, because we've seen in the past where Georgia Southern, for instance, came into the league their first year and really dominated the league, wound up winning the regular season conference, ineligible for a conference championship and bowl game and all that, but they dominated the league. We also saw the same thing with App State. They came in, picked up right away. So do you feel that that's kind of set the precedent of what James Madison has to come in and do, or do you think that they're in a position where they'll just come in and really pick up where they left off in the CAA?
I don't know if they have to follow that same precedent, because, I mean, you look back to when Georgia Southern came in, they obviously had a great year, but the league wasn't what it is now. I mean, JMU's getting into that East Division. It's going to be extremely competitive from top to bottom next year. I think JMU is going to be competitive. They got a lot of like FBS caliber players, and they're doing well in the transfer market right now and everything. But yeah, I think they're going to be competitive in most, if not all, their games. But I don't necessarily see them coming in and finishing at the top of the league right away, because it's just, what the Sun Belt's done. Part of the reason JMU is so excited about being in the Sun Belt is because of how they've built this league up to being a really, really good football league right now. So yeah, it's a different situation than what those other teams jumped into. Not that they can't be competitive and beat anybody on a given week necessarily, but I don't necessarily see them winning week in and week out, because it's so balanced in that, especially in that East Division.
What was the word around James Madison when the two schedules came out? Not really knowing who was in the league, who was not in the league, who are you going to play, who you have the potential of playing, and then who are you going to play?
I mean, I think there was always like plenty of confidence that the Sun Belt was going to win out in this whole battle with Conference USA. If nothing else, I mean, I was hearing all along, like people from ODU would be in contact with me, said, yeah, we're getting ready to play JMU and App State and all these teams next year. Like we're working on our marketing for like being in the Sun Belt. So they were always confident. Once things started going to like a legal battle, I think there was like a little bit more hesitation. But I don't know. You go back to just the whole realignment process. There are reasons JMU is in the Sun Belt now, because they could have joined Conference USA, but Conference USA is not run. And you guys talk to Keith Gill all the time. You know what an impressive guy he is, and he's got everything under control. Like I don't think anybody ever really kind of doubted that he'd have things ready to go next year with the 14 teams they wanted to play in this conference.
Well, I have to admit, once the legal challenges started to hit, I kind of thought maybe CSA had a point. I mean, they're losing a lot of marketable teams. Just to help them sustain another year, they would need to have those teams helping. So I really thought maybe they had a little more incentive to put that legal fight through, but I guess in the end they just didn't have the juice.
Yeah, and I think the three schools, they quickly filed the right paperwork to get it, so it was decided in their own home counties in West Virginia, Mississippi, Virginia, and so they had that advantage there, while Conference USA kind of wanted to do like a arbitration, which is a federal process, and it just didn't. They like I said, those three schools had the legal home court advantage, which worked out for them, and then it turned into three separate legal battles instead of one. And eventually, it was not going to. The timing for Conference USA just wasn't going to work out, because they've got other teams in that conference who need to figure out what they're doing as far as booking hotels and planes and everything for their games and putting out a schedule for their fans. I think eventually the rest of the schools wanted to move on, even if maybe the league office wasn't quite ready for that.
Right. Oh, you got to, right? But okay, so you talked a little bit about football with Tibbs. He was talking about, you both were talking about whether or not JMU has the talent and the abilities right now to compete right away in that very tough Sun Belt East. But what programs do you think JMU is going to make the biggest dent first? And it could be anything. It could be track. It could be roller skating. Whatever JMU has that you think would be like, yeah, these guys are going to kick some butt right away.
It's hard to say. I mean, I might think the team that might surprise some people is the men's basketball team, because they were really rolling early in the season this year, and then had a ton of injuries. They had almost a month without games because of COVID issues between them and other teams, and that really slowed them down, especially those injuries. They were just not the same team they were early in the season. But they're going to have the core of that group back. It looks like they're not getting hit too hard with transfers. They'll probably bring in some other transfers. So I think, men's basketball, people might look and say, oh, they were 15-14 last year in the CAA. But I think if they're full strength next year, they could be very, very competitive, and maybe at the top, close to the top of the Sun Belt. People, you probably just don't realize unless you're paying close attention that, that was a pretty talented team last year that had a lot of bad luck down the stretch.
Yeah,
derailed things.
I remember James Madison was the darling of the college basketball community. After who was the big win against? It was
Virginia. They had Virginia at home. They knocked them off, and it didn't end up being like a classic, one of Virginia's best teams, but that's a team that won at Cameron Indoor Stadium later in the season. They were decent. They were not a great team, but that was about the level they were on. Early on. One of their only losses early in the season was to Murray State, which we saw had a great year. It was a top 25 team. So, I think, probably going into next year, football is going to be competitive, but it'll be tough to win every week. Softball team that made a big run last year is young. They're rebuilding a little bit, and it's going to be a tougher conference for them. They're really stepping up a quality of going from CA to Sun Belt and softball and baseball. So I don't know if you'll see huge things from those teams, but I think men's basketball, and to a lesser degree women's basketball, might be ready to compete at the top of the conference right away.
Is there sort of a not subgenre, that's a weird thing to say, but maybe an other guy's sport, maybe like a beach volleyball, I don't know, or some other sport that JMU might be able to create some havoc?
Well, I mean, their women's lacrosse team is like fantastic. They're not playing in the Sun Belt as
Yeah.
a sponsor that, but it is a team that'll get some national attention, especially here on the East Coast where it's like, middle Atlantic area. It's a pretty big deal. Lacrosse, they're on a roll right now. Probably going to crack the top 10 when the next poll comes out. So, that's a sport, even though it's not a Sun Belt sponsored sport, that's one where, turn on the TV Memorial Day weekend, just flipping through channels, you might see JMU on ESPN, like playing for a championship, and that's
Well, that would be great. That would be awesome. But I do love lacrosse. My son plays lacrosse, and I wish that it would get a stronger hold. It's getting big in Texas. It's fairly big in Oklahoma, but places like Arkansas, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana's getting a little bit. They just haven't been there yet. So I'm hoping it catches on, and eventually we all have a lacrosse, a Sun Belt lacrosse conference too. That would be great.
It really is. It's a great sport. I mean, if you like football, if you like basketball, you would like lacrosse. If you like learn the rules and everything, it's really entertaining to watch. And
it's rough, and it's physical, and it's a little like baseball because you're flinging the ball as hard as you can. It's just really good stuff. I love
budget friendly.
I'm sorry, what?
It's budget friendly.
It is. Well, I tell you, have you ever paid for a lacrosse stick?
Yeah. I've got girls though, so really only have to buy is the stick. So that's been good for me. Like
that must be nice. Yeah. But hey, I want you to do me a favor, Shane. If you could find some way to cover the national basket or the NCAA basketball or the NCAA bowling tournament that's coming out next week. Arkansas State will be there. So
really? No.
Yeah. So I don't know if there's any programs out in the mid East that are being represented, but you might want to keep an eye on those Lady Red Wolves bowling. Yeah,
I'll keep an eye on that. Yeah, we we're trying to keep an eye on everything Sunbelt related, and
okay.
Try to eventually.
It's not Sunbelt. It's kind of like your lacrosse thing, but
it's the Southland.
It's the South. Vanderbilt's in our conference, and places like Prairie View. But it's a strange culture, college bowling. So if you ever get caught up into it, I can introduce you to some people if you need some interviews or something. Shane, you just let me know.
I might be in touch with you. Yeah.
we have fallen way off the rails in this interview.
Bring us back, Tibbs. Help us out.
So Shane, when you look at the four that are coming in, who do you see being the most successful in kind of their first attempt in the Sun Belt Conference of football this upcoming fall?
I mean, it's tough because, Southern Miss obviously is probably rebuilding a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But they're entering, probably an easier division outside of, Louisiana. That's, the West is going to be a little bit easier top to bottom. Marshall, I think they should be pretty solid next year. JMU and ODU are both, I think, in good places with their programs. But like I said, it's just going to be so competitive jumping in there right away. But, I've been really impressed with, what Ricky Rain's done at ODU so far. And, they continue to recruit really well, and they're in a really good spot for recruiting. When you look at their, that Norfolk, Virginia Beach metro area that they sit in is full of talent. And, I could see them, maybe surprising some people next year just because they finished so strong after a really rough start in his first season. He seems to have things going the right way. I wouldn't be surprised if ODU has a really good season next year. More I think about that.
Did you hear the subtle jab of the James Madison guy in the East, just poking the bear of the West of the lesser conference, the lesser division.
I think that's the way it stands right now. But I mean, we go back. It wasn't that long ago where Arkansas State was really good every year.
Yes, I know.
I know. I mean, just saying, like, that's kind of the beauty of this conference that they got put together is there are so many programs that could turn things around. They have the infrastructure there. They have what it takes to turn it around. Not everybody can win every year, but it's going to be really competitive. And yeah, I don't expect Arkansas State to stay down. I don't expect Georgia Southern to stay down. But then who are they going to replace at the top? It's going to be really, really fun to see all these teams competing against each other.
Well, I would much rather see James Madison on top than see Appalachian State up there again. So, so I'll be rooting for JMU to take over that East. But yes. So, what else do we have, Tibbs?
That's all we had.
Do we want to get a basketball prediction?
For the
Are they playing tonight? Yeah. What for the Final Four? Yeah. It's not our thing.
So
we
Shane,
might.
one of the few things that we do talk about that's not Sunbelt related is basketball, of course. National championship game coming up, North Carolina, Kansas, a classic matchup.
I don't know anything about these teams. I don't know anything about them. So
yeah, I don't know. I might should abstain because I'm actually a Kansas alum. I have some bias.
Abstain. Explain to us.
Everything else talked about, I'm a little bit biased in this one. I'm definitely pulling for my Jayhawks.
Okay.
Lifelong, Kansas. I grew up there. It's the team that kind of made me fall in love with sports was the '88 national championship team there in Kansas, and so yeah, I'm pulling for the Jayhawks all the way in that. I'll have to admit, I'm not impartial in this one.
Well, they looked awfully good yesterday, right?
Yeah. Hopefully they can look that good again because Carolina's been on a roll. They surely have.
Yeah, but Villanova, I don't think
we were talking before. They got all those bandwagon fans down there that went to school, so I can't see them all taking credit for that championship. That's not fair.
Oh, absolutely. North Carolina is powered by all the Appalachian State fans, so that might be their that might be their power. What about you, Tibbs? Who do you think? Come on.
Got to go with the Jayhawks. Right. I think that Self made a comment, something to the effect that anything short of a national championship to show their dominance just wouldn't be fair. And so if the man's going out and being that brash, he's got a reason to be there.
He must be feeling pretty cocky. I, too, will go with Kansas, only because I feel like Kansas is coming out with that super strong effort against Villanova. I feel like North Carolina feels like they're just happy enough beating Duke. So
yeah, I'm hoping there's some letdown that they've already played their championship game.
I think that's how they're looking at it
for this one.
Tim, do you have anything else for Shane?
That's all I got for Shane. We appreciate you joining us as always there, Shane, and look forward to talking to you sometime again over the summer as we get ready to welcome in the Dukes to the Sun Belt Conference.